Dolan worked at a gaming store and a customer tried to sell off her Pokemon Red game, except the cartridge wasn't Pokemon Red. It was a Game Boy Color cartridge painted red with a post-it note taped on the front with the words Pokemon written on it. Needless to say, she didn't get a refund. Plus, they had to kick her out because her goblin of a kid who looked like 1 or 2 was knocking over the merchandise.
One time, Nixon went to a party and got outrageously wasted. Halfway through the night, he wandered outside onto the street where he saw an all-night bus driving by. In his drunken state, Nixon was sure the bus was the Balrog from Lord of the Rings, so he ran out in front of it and shouted, "You shall not pass!" Luckily, the bus stopped just in time, but Nixon still had to spend the night locked up for being a public nuisance. Still better than being roadkill.
One time when Spinal Palm spent the night at his friend's house, he left his phone charger there. The next time he went over, his friend told him that his mom had found the charger and had put it in her closet. So Spinal Palm went to the closet, and sure enough, he saw the charger on the top shelf. But next to it was a board game that looked like the Game of Life. So he pulled it out and asked his friend if he wanted to play. They opened it up and quickly discovered it was not the Game of Life. The first card Spinal Palm read said, "Do the 69 position and let your partner try to sing a song to you." They decided to stop playing right about then.
So, Mikhailum's girlfriend loved to drink whiskey, and when she got drunk, she would do crazy things. One night, he went to buy 5 bottles of whiskey, so it lasts till Christmas. Mikhailum left the bottles on the table and was going to get some ice for them, but when he returned, he saw that they were gone. He was like,
"What the fuck happened to the drinks?"
He went to check on his girlfriend, who was nude, dancing, and throwing the bottles around her room. His sister called the police, blaming him for making his girlfriend drunk. She also called Mikhailum a pervert. He has since broken up with his girlfriend. I was taking out the garbage at work one night and somebody shut the door behind me, so I had to loop around the building to get back up to the front. As I was walking through the alleyway, I noticed a woman squatting over looking at the ground. I thought she may have dropped something. As I approached her to see if I could help out, she looked up, smiled at me, and said, "Watch out for my river." And thankfully I did watch out for a river, didn't step in it. The weirdest part about that is that the front door was open. If she had to go pee, she could have gone inside and used the ladies' room, but I guess if you gotta go, you gotta go.
Doopy was shopping at the mall with her mother, and they both decided to go to the food court for some grub. After getting their food and drinks, Doopy's mom went to the restroom, leaving her with their belongings. That's when Doopy noticed a woman in a subway uniform walking towards her. Once they were face to face, the subway lady asked her, "Can you do me a favor and take my shift while I go buy something?" Doopy was dumbfounded. She declined to help, but the lady would not stop begging. Eventually, she tossed her apron and hat at Doopy and just walked off. Instead of going after the lady, she decided to put on the subway uniform. Why did she do this? Good question. I don't know. When Doopy's mom came back, she noticed her daughter was no longer at the table. She found her behind the subway counter, walked over and said, "Yes, I'll get a my kid is in trouble to go." Dolan once booby-trapped his computer. If anybody pulled out his chair, it would set off a music disc player that played Rick Astley. Eventually, when he was taking a shower, he heard the music start playing. He came out and he found that his mother was trying to vacuum his room and had pulled his chair out from underneath his desk. She wasn't happy that it was booby-trapped, so he told her that if she didn't like it, she shouldn't go in his room. He then later booby-trapped his computer mouse so that if it was moved without being deactivated, it would shut off his computer tower. He might be a bit paranoid, but who wants their parents rummaging around on their computer? Who knows what they might find?
Pandora was cooking dinner once while she was babysitting a friend's kid. She opened the drawer to grab a fork and the child asked her, "Do you have knives in that drawer?" She told him yes, but not to touch them because they're very dangerous. He smiled and said, "That's good to know." After dinner, he was playing with some toy food and picked up a plastic knife. He ran over to Pandora and whispered in her ear, "I want a real knife." She told him no, so he looked her dead in the eye and said, "You better give me that real knife." She called his parents to tell them he wasn't feeling well, and they came and picked him up. That was the last time she ever babysat.
My family doesn't really do anything weird, except for one thing. It's not that strange, but all the men on my father's side of the family all have nicknames, and their nickname is the first letter of their first name and their middle name. So for example, my father, his nickname that everybody calls him is T.A. Now his father, his nickname is B.A. And if you're wondering what my nickname would be, it would be T.A. as well. So it's kind of weird. I like it.
I date crazy women. Crazy women are fun. But one crazy woman broke up with me because I died in her imaginary world. See, she had this fictional type of world that exists outside of reality, mostly inside of her crazy head, and in that world I died, so therefore she could not date me anymore. Deep down on the inside, I hope that was just an excuse to break up with me and not a real thing going on in her head. Because if it is, she's pretty crazy and I didn't do anything to help out. Well, not my problem anymore.
When Pringle was in 6th grade, his teacher was giving his class the end of the year history test. Because he didn't study for it, Pringle told the teacher that he was sick and acted as if he was gonna throw up. She told him to tough it out. So Pringle elaborated and touched the back of his throat with his finger to make himself throw up when the teacher wasn't looking. He sat in the back of the class so she couldn't see him. Pringle eventually did throw up, and threw up more than he expected. Most of his lunch came out. He'd been drinking Hawaiian punch before, so it had a red color to it, making it look like blood. Ugh, God, this is making me sick. Let's describe the vomit in specific detail, shall we? Teacher saw the puke and started to freak out, thinking he was throwing up blood. She sent him to the nurse's office and called his mum, considering she was a doctor. Somehow, Pringle's mum bought the story that he was sick, but she figured the fake blood was the Hawaiian punch she'd packed him, just like she did every day. Pringle was sent home and got to study for the test, which he took the next day and passed with a B.
Playing pranks and jokes at serious time is Hellbent's most annoying habit. When he was in 7th grade, he got his first phone. One day when he was in art class, they had a lockdown because someone with a gun entered the school property. So all the lights were shut off, and they went into the corner. Hellbent was on his phone when he realized that he had an app that had sound effects. He quickly turned up the volume, and he played the gun effect. He laughed his ass off while half the class cried in fear. And in the end, Hellbent confessed and got a 2-day suspension.
One time, to impress his crush, Hellbent took her and her friends to the movie theater. One of them didn't have any money to get in, so he said,
Follow my lead.
While giving his ticket to the ticket lady, he pretended to have his pants fall off, and then tripped. As he lay on the ground with his pants off, the girl walked past the lady without her even noticing because most of the people were staring at Hellbent. He was hoping that by getting his crush's friend into the movie, she would notice and think it was cool. Hellbent also just wanted to take his pants off. To this day, it's still one of his favorite things to do in public to get reactions.
It was an 11th grade math class, and a guy Shima had a crush on, the class clown so to say, told her that he'd give her $10 if she ate a ghost pepper right then and there. Of course, she wanted to impress him and look cool, so Shima agreed. The first bite wasn't so bad until it really hit her. She started choking and sweating. The teacher was panicking because he had no idea what was going on, and Shima had to run to the cafeteria to buy milk because water just couldn't cut it. After the burning stopped, she thought she was in the clear, but that wasn't the case. 2 or so hours later, while still in school, Shima had to sprint to the bathroom to dispose of the partially digested pepper from both ends. She got her $10 though.
When Melissa's brother turned 18, her parents took him and the whole family to a fancy restaurant. Everyone was laughing, having a great time. When the staff brought the cake out, they all sang happy birthday. Melissa's dad proposed a toast, so they all ordered drinks. Melissa got a root beer, and when she tasted it, she didn't think it was sweet enough. So she took 4 packets of sugar and dumped them all in at once. The next thing Melissa knew, the soda was shooting out like a Mentos bomb. Melissa jumped up and yelled,
Oh my god!
right in the middle of a super serious toast. The entire restaurant went silent and Melissa's mum shot her a look. like she was gonna beat the shit out of her. Melissa was obviously pretty embarrassed.
In the late 90s, early 2000s, Ligna used to hang out at a club called the Lizard Lounge, which had goth night every Thursday and Sunday. One time he looked down at the dance floor and saw two guys kicking the living shit out of each other. The bouncer ended up having to escort them out. Ligna later found out they were fighting because one guy insulted the way the other guy applied his eyeshadow.
When Legna and his family were in New York, they took a taxi to get to their hotel. When they got there, the man said, "All right, that'll be $20.53. They gave him the money, but then he said, "I said $50. They were really confused, so Legna said,
No, it's $20.53.
That's when the man got very angry and he pulled out a knife. He said, "Give me the money or die." So they gave him the money. They never rode a taxi again.
When she was in first grade, Andy shit herself. She tried to hide it, but another kid in her class, Ramona, asked, "Ew, why do you smell like poop?" Andy said, "It's a new perfume called Poopery." Of course, everyone knew it was a lie and kept saying, "Andy pooped her pants, Andy pooped her pants." In an attempt to stop the ridicule, Andy said, "It was Ramona who pooped in my pants." Nobody believed her. To this day, Andy is still called Shit Spray, although now she and Ramona are best friends.
When Civil Spider worked at a Panera Bread, a guy walked in late one evening. He asked if they were serving any of their breakfast items. Civil Spider told him they stopped selling breakfast items at 10:30. The customer gave him a look and said, "So why aren't you selling them right now?" Civil Spider had to explain that he meant 10:30 in the morning. The place isn't even open at 10:30 p.m. The man slowly nodded and said, "Well, that's fine. I came here to get mac and cheese anyways." In his head, Civil Spider thought,
Then why the hell did you ask about breakfast?
Civil Spider's middle school had a rule called no public indecency. One day he was in PE class where everyone had to wear really tight, uncomfortable shorts. He popped one of those no reason boners and tried to hide it, but there wasn't really any way to hide it. The teacher decided to embarrass him out of the whole class, saying, "Civil Spider, how dare you have an erection? Go to the dean's office right now!" Not only was Civil Spider really embarrassed, but his entire class laughed at him, including his crush. When he got to the office, he was given 2 demerits and 2 3-hour detentions, all for accidentally having a boner in gym class.
Tolop's weirdest secret is that when he was 10 years old, he was sitting in his backyard playing with toys. He was playing with his action figures, minding his own business, when he suddenly saw a bee buzzing around his head. Instead of trying to shoo the bee, Tolop decided to whip out his King Kong dong and piss on the poor defenseless bee until it couldn't fly anymore. The bee died in a pool of urine in the grass. It wasn't his proudest moment. Luckily, nobody saw him murder the animal with his urine of death.
When Ramona was younger, her parents tried to get her to have an arranged marriage with a guy named Eric. Since Ramona and Eric had never spoken, they decided to go on a date to the mall. When Eric showed up, Ramona was shocked at how tall and handsome he was. They walked around getting to know each other. The whole time Eric was a complete gentleman. They soon got hungry and decided to go to the food court. Eric ordered their food while Ramona stared dreamily at her future husband. But that's when she started to notice a few red flags. While he was in line, Ramona caught Eric openly flirting with the girls around him. Then the fast food attendant came over with Eric's order. He noticed she'd messed up the order and blew up. He screamed at the girl, calling her an idiot and throwing his Coke in her face. The whole food court was looking at him. He then fixed up his order and smiled at Ramona like nothing had happened. But Ramona was like, "Nope," and got out of there as fast as she could. She told her family she would not be marrying this asshole and is still a happy single Pringle. Meanwhile, Eric ended up marrying a mean old gold digger. Guess he got what he deserved.
When Hellbent was 16, his job involved driving to different places trying to buy cigarettes. He'd go to every tobacco shop in town to see if he could get them to sell to a minor. If they did, the store would get a huge fine or face being shut down. Hellbent loved it because he basically got paid to hang out, cause trouble, and smoke.
Mimi Up was the host at an IHOP. One night around 1 a.m., a drunken man and his friends walked in. When Mimi told them to follow her to her table, the man replied, "I'll follow you anywhere, baby." Mimi shrugged it off and sat them at the table. Soon after, the man turned and asked if Mimi was a virgin. She politely told him it was none of his business. To this, his response was, "If you are, you're not going to be when I'm done with you." Then he drank the strawberry syrup and took all of the rolled silverware outside and hid them like an Easter egg hunt. They were still finding silverware 2 weeks later.
Hellbent used to work as a barman for events at his local town hall. Working behind a bar, he saw a bunch of dumb things. But the one that stood out the most was on his first shift ever. A bunch of students who had booked a large party at the venue went on such a huge bender that they tried throwing up in a jug for water. They threw up so much that it overflowed and covered literally every inch of the table. They were barred from the building and fined for the tablecloth and jug, which had to be thrown away.
One time, Salty Squid was bored at camp, so he decided to teach himself how to backflip off a tree. Every day he practiced in secret until he was finally ready to show the group. He gathered everyone and told them that he was going to show them something awesome. With 15 pairs of eyes on him, he ran at the tree as hard as he could. He went to plant his foot into the tree trunk like he practiced, but he completely missed it. He ended up crashing and completely KOing himself. He was so embarrassed because he basically gathered everyone to watch him run into a tree.
Froggy's first boyfriend had asked her out via email, and they dated for a couple of months before he moved away. A month after, just before Christmas, her boyfriend texted her asking, "Do you still consider us together?" She replied with, "Of course I do, why wouldn't I?" He answered by saying, "Because I don't think we are." So Froggy replied, "What do you mean?" He told her that he found someone better, who was purtier and smarter at his new school. Froggy was speechless, as her ex-boyfriend had broken up with her over text, plus had possibly been cheating on her for quite a while. He claimed he hadn't cheated on her, but Froggy had her doubts. In addition to breaking up with her and telling her what he had done, her ex-boyfriend said that he had been dead to ask her out. Froggy wondered what kind of sick person did that to another person's feelings. She has since found a new boyfriend.
When he was in college, there was a girl that Hellbent was head over heels for, but couldn't bring himself to ask her out. He finally worked up the courage to ask her out, but she gave him a soft and honest no. But he wasn't about to give up. He decided to lay a trail of rose petals from her dorm to his, but before that he lit a bunch of candles in his dorm and put a condom on his bed. So he started the trail, and it was hard work. When he was on the last 100 feet, Hellbent was going straight for 19 hours, but an eagle-eyed teacher noticed and asked him what he was doing. Hellbent explained, and she understood and simply walked off. After that, he was done and rang her doorbell and then ran back to his dorm. 10 minutes later, the girl opened the door to his dorm, and, well, they had a good time.
Dolan's always had some pretty crazy beliefs, but as a kid he actually thought cats and dogs were the same animal, just different genders. His family owned a male dog, so Dolan just assumed all dogs were males. He thought cats were so dainty that they had to be girls. He actually believed this for most of his childhood. In the end, Melissa had to sit him down and explain the difference.
My brother was a quiet and serious kid at school. One day, the girlfriend of a bully started talking to him during lunch and told him, "You're cute." Her boyfriend heard it all from way across the cafeteria and turned his head faster than light itself. He ran over and punched my brother and said, "This is my girl." He then insulted my brother and his whole family, including me. Before he even realized what he was doing, my brother punched the bully right in the nose, knocking him down, and there he stood watching him cry with a bloody nose. Why? He had no idea what had just happened, but no one ever bullied him again, and he even ended up taking his girlfriend too.
When James Shark was in high school, he was dating a very talented violinist from his orchestra class. During one of her most epic recitals, she got a standing ovation from the audience. They wanted an encore, and she knew James Shark was in the front row. She told everyone that the next song was dedicated to him. She started playing the Happy Birthday song, but decided to change the lyrics. She sang, "It's over with you, you're no longer my dude, you're not worth my time, we're done and we're through." He wasn't sure what he had done to deserve that, and left without seeing any of the other musicians play.
The worst nightmare that I have ever had is actually a recurring dream that I have had all throughout my life. The dream always starts the same. I'm in a forest, alone, wandering amongst the trees. when suddenly I would hear a noise somewhere nearby. I would look around, terrified, knowing what was about to come, as if sensing it. And suddenly, it would happen. A massive brown bear would emerge from the brush nearby, charging right at me. I'd immediately turn and run as fast as I could, trying desperately to escape the bear, who would roar and sprint after me. I can't say why I've had this dream so many times throughout my life, as I don't really even consider bears to be that scary, but whenever I do have this dream, it always freaks me out.
When Slaptam was a chubby young pig, his dad would take him on trips to the mall. One day, he and his dad were passing by a clothing store when they saw a hot and muscular male model standing outside trying to bring customers in. Slaptam's dad turned to his son and offered him $60 to go up to the model, whip off his shirt, and yell,
"This is your competition."
At the time, Slaptam had more confidence than he knew what to do with, so he went right up to the guy and did it. He even did his special talent of moving his rolls and belly fat up and down like a belly dancer. Slaptam's sexy dance caused such a scene that the mall security came over and gave them a warning. Slaptam was pretty embarrassed, but the $60 made all of those bad feelings disappear.
Melissa was walking by a Starbucks when she saw a crazy homeless man. He was acting as though he had a dog and was holding it by the leash, bent down to pet his invisible dog and gave it an invisible treat. It was really weird for Melissa to see, but then the man walked to a trash can in front of Starbucks, put his hand in the trash, grabbed a cup and started drinking it. Yummy.
When M. Kyle M. went on holiday once, he found himself getting quite drunk, and he wandered out alone into a desert. He remembers having a great time exploring, and the rest of the night was a blur. The next morning, he woke up with extreme pain in his penis and no pants on. It was one of his finer moments in life when he realized that the night before, he had literally tried to have sex with a cactus. He spent the rest of the day quietly picking needles out from his needle in the bathroom. That's my fetish.
When she was in high school, Lady Butt was rehearsing a dance and drama practice one day. One of the boys who was supposed to catch her got distracted. She dumped into his arms, but his brain just did not compute. She was dropped on her head, and his hand just so happened to pull down her pants in the process. The rest of the class crowded around to help her, but they were all giggling. What a day to wear unicorn pattern underpants to school.
I wasn't a particularly religious young person. Occasionally a family member or someone might try and get us to go to Sunday school. I remember one time at the end of Sunday school, after we'd made the cross out of all the matchsticks or whatever, there was a little bit where people prayed for other people who needed it. So after all these people got prayers and things, someone asked me who I'd like to have everyone pray for. And I was feeling a bit left out at this point, I didn't really get on with all the other people because of the whole religion thing. So I just wanted some me time. I told everyone that I was going in for knee surgery that weekend because I had a bit of a funny looking knee. Osgood Schlatters disease, if you're interested. So I sat through the weird process of having a room full of young people pray for me for a thing that wasn't real. I don't think anyone ever found out, although probably the adults could have guessed. That was a bit of a dodgy thing to do, wasn't it?
When Eragon was 6, he was playing quietly while his babysitter, who was actually his grumpy uncle, was sitting in the next room watching TV. Suddenly, he heard his sister crying at the top of her lungs and assumed she had fallen over or something. His uncle stormed into the room and just assumed they were having a fight and slapped Eragon as hard as he could while screaming at him. Eragon was a quiet kid and kept telling his uncle that he did nothing wrong. Of course, this made his uncle even madder, and he slapped Eragon again. After a few hours, his uncle found Eragon hiding in a corner and gave him a $5 bill as an apology. Gee, thanks, Uncle. Well, Pandora had invited her boyfriend over to meet her parents and have dinner with them. His parents had an emergency and had to leave him behind. He didn't say a word throughout dinner. When they finished, Pandora told him,
"Love, why haven't you spoken to my parents? It's embarrassing."
Then he looked up at Pandora and said,
"Well, today I went to buy condoms and I was really excited. I told the cashier to wish me luck tonight, and the cashier was your brother."
That night, Pandora's mom made him sleep on the couch.